we are the creator in an infinite variety of expressions. Now that knowledge is empowering and liberating, but as we're walking around in 3D bodies in a world built on egoism, as somebody, Aquabone in the chat room says, we're working in a world filled with egos, and we have our own egos to deal with as well. And that's really the key right there, is dealing with our own egos. And I'll come back to that in a moment. I want to go back now to the woman who felt the reptiles. And hopefully now the reptiles, you'll see them in a slightly different perspective than you had before. Not so much as an energy to be vanquished or a vampire to be slain, but simply a manifestation of your own state of mind. And it's also important to not judge yourself for having manifested these experiences. All too often, we allow our egos to take and co-opt our spiritual knowledge. And we beat ourselves up, saying we're not good enough, we haven't transcended enough, we haven't ascended enough. That's a trap. That's simply your own ego, your own insecurities telling you that you're not good enough. And so minimizing the ego is a very important aspect of this. And everybody listening who has gone through the self-clearing system on ascensionhelp.com, you know that you have the tool of ego minimizing. And yes, we are hardest on ourselves. And in one perspective, we do need to be hard on ourselves, but not in a judgmental or critical or self-condemning way. When I say to be hard on ourselves, maybe a better way to put that would be that we need to be brutally honest with ourselves. When I experience a psychic attack coming from outside, I have to be brutally honest with myself after I've done the energy refund and after I've put myself in a clear space. I have to be brutally honest with my own judgments, my own perceptions, my own resistance to the way that other people are. Because when I'm judging somebody else, I'm simply resisting an aspect of them that reminds me of something in me that I haven't dealt with yet. So that being brutally honest with myself and looking at exactly what it is that I'm putting out at all times is an extremely important task. And so just to recap on what a psychic attack means. It means that through our own thoughts, through our own judgments, we open up a channel, a pathway for other people's judgments, harsh energies, critical energies to come right back to us. And that's really the mechanism of 95% of psychic attacks. Now, there are some special cases where people have to deal with past life entities. Some people have dealt and dabbled in black magic and other incarnations. Some people have to deal with having lived incarnations of being very cruel, very punishing. And so there will be an extra level that you'll have to work on when that's the case for you. But again, that brings us back to being brutally honest with yourself. Once you're honest enough with yourself to acknowledge that you've experienced and created lifetimes such as that in your past and that you're dealing with those ramifications now, then we need to move into forgiveness. And forgiveness is key for healing yourself and healing your past. And it is also very key for removing psychic attacks from your sphere of consciousness. Because after you've done an energy refund, had your higher self send any external harmful projections to the higher self of the sender, then you look at yourself completely honestly, at your attitudes, and then you begin to forgive yourself. You expand yourself and expand your consciousness from your heart center. You expand your mind and your love and forgive yourself for whatever actions you've committed in this or any other lifetime. And in so doing, you will be able, over time, to heal the self-condemnation that you have put upon yourself from this and other lifetimes. So somebody said that they prefer the phrase radically honest. Why would you say brutal? So it's all words, whatever words work for you, of course, are the best. And somebody asked me to speak quickly about The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart is one of my favorite authors. I highly recommend his books for anybody who hasn't read them, although I doubt there's very many left. And to me, the essence of what Eckhart is teaching is also the essence of self-healing. The whole energetic clearing system that I've put up on ascensionhelp.com are really tools for us to get ourselves to the point where we're no longer living in our past, we're no longer judging people from our past, we're no longer dredging up old slights or insults or traumas that have happened to us. And we're also no longer just feeling this unconsciousness of our pain. We're no longer acting from that state of unconsciousness. And instead we're acting from a present moment. And we're not allowing our ego to dominate our minds and to manipulate our minds. And of course that's easier said than done, but it's an ongoing process. And that's why Ego Minimizer and just being aware of the ego are very useful tools. And when I say Ego Minimizer, those are one of the self-clearing techniques on ascensionhelp.com. And so we have a very interesting conversation going in the chat now about judgments and the judgments of others. And it's absolutely, and it does depend on whose ego you're speaking of as well. That's true. Now, when somebody doesn't like us, here's the trick. It's a very tricky one. It's very easy to begin to judge others for judging you. And that's, again, a trap that we want to avoid. So, just from my own personal experience, putting out a website like ascensionhelp.com, I'm absolutely laying my entire essence of who I am really out there for the public to see and judge, really. But that's okay, because everybody, to some extent or another, judges unless they have done the work to transcend the knee-jerk judgment that kicks in whenever something is different from what we currently believe. Because if you think about it, whenever you hear something that goes against what you believe, an aspect, usually your ego, will judge that. So somebody asked to define heart-centered. So my definition of heart-centered has a little bit of a twist to it, in that the very first step of whenever I'm doing any type of energy work, any meditation, or really when I wake up in the morning, is I tune into my higher self. And really, getting back to psychic attacks and protection, the higher self is your ultimate protector, and truly the only protector that you will need. Because no matter what's happening to you on an energetic level, even if you're experiencing the worst psychic attack ever, truly that attack cannot do permanent damage to you. The entity attacking you cannot steal your soul. The most that they can do as far as damage goes is take a little bit of your energy from you that you've already been broadcasting out anyways through a sense of judgment, a sense of lack, a sense of inferiority, a sense of needing to prove yourself, that type of thing. There's so many attitudes that will open up a pathway to a psychic attack. So the very first thing I do is tune in and integrate my higher self. So that's why the first self-clearing system technique is the higher self meditation. And then I move my higher self awareness into my heart. And that to me is being heart-centered. So that infinite power that is my higher self is anchored through my focus, through my intent in my heart. And then I expand that love. I breathe it in, I breathe it out. I focus on my heart, I focus on my higher self, and I expand it. And the more I expand it, then the more I can forgive myself, the more I can forgive others, the more I can forgive the world. And the more I can allow the world to be exactly as it is and not judge it or resist it. Because the more I resist it, the more I judge it, the more I condemn it, doing so simply opens a portal for me to experience the natural result of broadcasting those energies out, which is to get some of it back and a little bit more. So it feels like an attack. So somebody asked if I believe that we are creating our own futures by thoughts, feelings, and constant thoughts. I absolutely do believe that. I believe that every single thought that we think, every single feeling and emotion that we feel resonates, ripples out into our reality, and influences our reality around us. And in the process of self-clearing, my results and the results of those who I've spoken with at length and who have practiced these and other similar techniques, we've found that we think less, which sounds almost like a detriment in our modern society of multitasking, multi-everything. But the reality is that when you're thinking less, you've let go of those judgments of the past. You've let go of worrying, having anxiety about the future. When you're in that present moment, you have far fewer thoughts running through your mind. And the thoughts that do come in are much more expanded. They last longer. They feel different. They fill your consciousness. They tend to be much more loving thoughts, much more harmonious thoughts. And the more that we cultivate that state of not thinking in the past or worrying about the future, not dredging up all those old emotions, that allows us to think more clearly and then to have a much more profound impact on our lives with our thoughts, allowing us to manifest much more efficiently. because the reason most